to our face during those gray, wet days of winter.
For bronzer, you just want to make sure you put it on your face where the sun would be.
Council meeting for Monday, November 28, 2011, here at the Shaw Auditorium. And we'll start off by calling the meeting to order, and we'll ask Mr. Holmes if you could introduce the late items, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Move item 20B, delegations pertaining to items not on the agenda. Mr. Jim Ercolishan to item 6A, delegations pertaining to agenda items. Add item 6B, delegations pertaining to agenda items, Mr. Matthew O'Donnell, Mr. Reese Williams, Ms. Jessie Cummings, and Ms. June Ross regarding Occupy Nanaimo. Add item 7A, announcement from Mayor Rattan re Occupy Nanaimo. And delete item 11D, staff reports, property maintenance bylaw, 1990 number 3704, 91 Chapel Street.
Thank you. If I could ask for... There's a lot of playback here. If I could ask you for an adoption agenda as amended.
In position to take a commanding
Second.
lead here before the second.
Sure, go ahead.
Item, I'll say 2B, or you've got item 6B on the green copy here. You list several names. Is that for one delegation, or are those individuals going to be speaking individually?
Your Worship, they were submitted as a single delegation, and the four of them will share the 10-minute slot.
Okay, it's just a matter that with the council procedure, if you're over so many delegations, you're only allowed for 5 minutes, and clarification.
Before they just make it. So that will be, they'll have a 10-minute window. Okay, we're going to now, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into the adoption of...
Move adoption of the minutes as circulated.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move down into presentations now, and then into delegation 6A. Mr. Jim Ercolin, if you're here, sir, you have up to 10 minutes. Is he here?
Second and 10 from the 25. Again, time. Again, Colston. 15 yards. First down. Timeout.
Wasn't expecting to be
on a roll.
Maybe you didn't get a copy of the agenda. There's one right behind Mr. Churchill. You can follow along with this here.
There in the beginning.
Okay.
I was there in 1996.
Moscow Gold in 88.
There's nothing like it.
Unbelievable.
I saw it happen in the palm of my hand.
It's every kid's dream.
I struck.
Okay, I can speak now, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to start by congratulating you all on the election wins that have won, and as a representative of the Green Party, I hope we'll be able to support the new council as support the old council, especially Councilman Sherry and Councilman Holdham. I know you're retiring this year, but
and Councillor Unger as well.
Hey,
Councillor Unger is also retiring.
Yeah, okay. I'd like to mention that the Green Party is interested in candidates that have a winning electoral record and progressive voting record, so we would invite you to consider us as a possible future thing if you get bored with retirement. I know you're looking forward to retirement. But. Okay, I'd like to talk about the Occupy Nanaimo movement. which in its short tenure has brought a number of issues into the public debate that have been central to Green Party thinking for many years. The disparity in incomes, housing difficulties, not only for the homeless but for working Canadians, the deterioration of our water and air, reduction of wildlife habitat, clear-cutting of our forests by multinational corporations, destruction of fisheries stocks, the list seems to get longer every day. During your tenure in office, you have worked on some of these policies, and the new council will be expected to act on some of these, so we thought we'd bring them forward today and remind you of them, and hopefully new councillors will also find out what the Green Party is about and what we're hoping to do. The property structure in Nanaimo, for instance, heavily favors people who own several buildings, and this is true of residential properties as well as business properties. Many of the properties are deteriorating, and we would all be better served if more of these were owned by people who could keep them in good repair, something that can be influenced by the tax structure. Our water supply comes from the Jump Lake watershed, which is controlled by Island Timberlands. It's not owned by Timberlands, it's controlled by them, not legally owned. A logging company that's moving toward becoming a real estate company as they clear cut the watershed. This corporation has little incentive to protect Nanaimo's water, and in fact, protection of the water quality is often in competition with profits to be made in logging and real estate. There are two possible solutions to the fact that we don't own the Jump Lake watershed, and one is to purchase it from the rightful owners, who are under Canadian law, the Nanaimo First Nations. If we should decide to go with expropriation, it should be done with full compliance of the First Nations, who are a part of our community as well. The practice of storing logs, most destined for China, in our estuary is detrimental to salmon, herring, and other aquatic species. The logs shade and impact the bottom, tearing off the eelgrass that provide food and shelter for young salmon as they adapt to the salt water. No other community on the British Columbia coast allows this degradation of their estuary, and we hope that Nanaimo will follow the other communities in banning log storage in our estuary. When the Harmac pulp mill was purchased by the workers, they asked to be allowed to operate without meeting pollution targets to the water and air. The operation has been profitable now for over 5 months. It's time for them to start paying back for the damage they've caused in the meantime. These are some of the issues that will be asked to weigh in on during your term in office, and the Green Party will be here to observe your decisions and offer advice, because these issues are directly concerned with those of Occupy Nanaimo. We request that you allow the movement to continue at the present site of the Crowell Plaza. Thank you for hearing my words.
Thank you, sir. We have a question. Councillor Sherry, did you have anything? Okay. Thank you, sir. No other questions. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next delegations actually will be made up of Mr. Matthew O'Donnell, Mr. Rhys Williams, Ms. Jessie Cummings, and Ms. June Ross. Welcome.
June is not here.
Is one missing? And okay.
June is not here.
Hello, my name is Matthew O'Donnell. I obviously represent Occupy Nanaimo. I would like to once again thank Council, you, Mr. Mayor, and the RCMP for your continued cooperation and open-mindedness during the last 6 weeks. And again, I would like to point out, as I pointed out earlier, that all of you sitting here, as well as everyone in this audience, are part of the 99%, and we believe that by working together, hand in hand, together, we can create real change both in the community and also working globally as well. Again, I would like to mention our position on behalf of Occupy Nanaimo that we are willing to leave Diana Krall Plaza only if we have a more suitable location in Nanaimo to occupy that will allow us to work on improving both the local community and also working on global change through the global Occupy movement. And again, I'd like to repeat also just a few misconceptions that the public has about Occupy Nanaimo, that we are not a squatters camp, as some people think. There are very few people who are actually homeless down at the camp, and those people strongly, strongly, strongly believe in this cause with all their hearts, and they're here because they want to be, not because, they're just getting a free meal. Another misconception is that if we stay at Diana Krall Plaza, that we will, hijack or take over the plaza. That is not true. We are totally open for any person or organization, such as the Downtown Nanaimo Business Association, to use that plaza. It's public space. That's why we're there. And anyone else who wants to use it, we will not stand in their way at all to allow them to use it. Another misconception that I didn't really touch on earlier today, but it is important to note, is the fact that a lot of people say that we don't have much support of the small businesses downtown. I have to say that we do support small business, and small business does support Occupy Nanaimo. We've been very vocal about encouraging shopping at local businesses, and we've been very happy to spend a lot of our own money at these local businesses as well. Local businesses have also been kind enough to host our general assemblies in their shops as well, such as the Vault and the Dancing Goat, which in turn has provided revenue to those small businesses directly. And again, I guess I'll just close my part by just saying that we really, really want to work with the City of Nanaimo to create positive change here in the community. And I truly believe that all of us as human beings, we can, and we can work together and we can provide real change. And now I'll just turn it over to Jesse Cummings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Occupy Nanaimo wishes to remain in Diana Krall Plaza in solidarity with other Occupy camps around the world. Our camp may be small in comparison to those of larger cities, but it is symbolic of the Occupy movement. We camp because we want to show that we are willing to sacrifice our own personal comforts for the sake of human rights and to create awareness of the movement. Bear in mind that the tent city in Diana Krall Plaza is just the tip of a much larger iceberg. We have about 20 to 30 campers, but we also have hundreds of people working for our cause citywide and thousands of supporters within Nanaimo. We feel we've been approachable, peaceful, receptive to public opinions, and have done everything we can since day one to communicate constructively with the RCMP and the city. Occupy Nanaimo has been actively supporting local businesses and has gained the support of many businesses in the area who feel we speak to their interests. We believe we have the right to continue to use our public space to exercise our rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and protest. The only exit strategy we can offer at this point would be another location to continue to demonstrate from, which would have to be superior or equal to Diana Krall Plaza in visibility, location, and accommodation to our needs. Our vision, if granted continuation at Diana Krall Plaza, is to create an inspiring and creative atmosphere in the plaza where people can come to learn more about our views and also express their own ideas and concerns for a better world. We are building a sense of community here, which we believe, given time, can set an example of a positive lifestyle we believe should be everyone's right. This is just a small arm of a monumental worldwide movement determined to bring change to the failing capitalist system. We offer you the opportunity to stand with us and help create positive change in our community and the world.
Thank you.
My name is Reese Williams. I've already spoken about this before, but I just want to make it clear that there are some precedents set as far as council and the Occupy relationship is concerned. And on November 5th in Seattle, there was a resolution put forth by the Occupy movement there that the public's money be taken from the banks that were given bailouts and put into credit unions and small locally owned banks, and that way they would keep the money in the local economies rather than sending it on to Wall Street. So the city actually, one of the city councillors, Nick Licata, he put the resolution before council on November 14th and it passed unanimously. So now the money, instead of flowing out of the area, is staying in Seattle. in Duluth, the camp that was occupied there. The Chamber of Commerce has come on board with them. They've endorsed the camp. The people there feel that, to be honest, the mayor and the police have been very good to them. They've offered solutions. They talked to them. They even helped them to procure the site that they were on. So the relationship there between the City Council and the Chamber of Commerce is very good. In the case of Edinburgh, that's maybe one of the best cases so far where the city has actively got behind the movement. And with the historic decision of endorsing the Occupy movement in Edinburgh, the city council there set an example that smaller local councils should be following the example that was set by Edinburgh by aligning themselves to the grassroots paradigm that places people and community before profits and unsustainable growth, and that the council in Edinburgh recognizes the aims of the Occupy movement's decision to be more oriented toward the poor and disenfranchised, with a sentiment that the Edinburgh Council endorses. So this is what we would hope to get from you, some kind of endorsement. We would love to have a building of some kind that we could possibly occupy or do the same kind of thing that we're doing in Diana Krall Plaza, give you some kind of an exit strategy, and we would leave the plaza. So that's the kind of cooperation we're talking about. An endorsement would be fantastic too. But there's a report here I have from the ICMA, which is the International City and County Management Association, and bear with me, but it's just a little bit of statistics, and it's a nonpartisan association of local government officials, and they conducted a survey consisted of 376 local governments, of only which 87 reported that they had Occupy encampments in their communities. The respondents wanted to emphasize the key to the positive relationship with the Occupy movement consists of simple and clear guidelines and open discussion with the activists. And the survey also found that 62% of governments in communities where Occupy protests have formed say that their relationship with the movement is at least somewhat collaborative, while 22% called their relations very collaborative, and only 5% said that the situations were tense or confrontational. I would say that as far as our relationships with you go, we'd fall in the 22% category of very collaborative. I would say that there's been an open dialogue between us right from the very beginning, and that's probably one of the things that's helped us to last so long. Other common criticisms of the Occupy protest focus on our camp-like structure, that it breeds concerns about sanitation, security, and crime. But the official survey did not share such fears. 56% say they were unconcerned about sanitary conditions at the protest sites, with even higher numbers saying that they did not anticipate issues with health, safety, criminal activity, or clashes with the police. And an overwhelming majority, just to bear with me repeating the same statement, claim that the protests had not affected the economic life in their communities, and that yes, we are supporting the local community financially with whatever funds we have, we spend it locally. And we frequent the stores, so we're not just going in there once, we're going back there. So the downtown core is benefiting, but we shop all over Nanaimo. So we're not just benefiting the downtown core, we're benefiting the whole town. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Before you go, we have, just before you go, I think we have Councillor Patchy. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Worship. A comment more than a question, Your Worship. To you, Matthew, Reese, and Jesse, I, like this morning, want to thank you for your forthright discussion that we had. The things that you stand for are really, really important, and I'm aware of it. I also know that we have talked about possibly providing you with a forum of some sort that will let you continue spreading the message, and I'm in favor of that. I don't know how that forum will take place at this point, but regardless of what happens, the thing that really spoke to me, I saw it on TV or in a newspaper picture, a tent can be evicted, an idea cannot. So I believe in that. I think we have to continue to be open and frank with each other. I don't think it's going to be an easy road. We just have to keep talking, and we'll see what this takes us. But I do want to thank you for your concern for us, and I think we have also shown the respect that you deserve. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? That's it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Now, under the Mayor's report, I do have a statement to make. Actually, it's an announcement on it, and it's that the City of Nanaimo fully supports the rights to freedom of expression. Since the occupation of the Diana Krall Plaza, Mayor and Council, staff and the RCMP have actively communicated with the occupiers in an attempt to bring about resolution and an end to the occupation of the plaza. The City of Nanaimo had hoped that through these discussions, the occupiers would vacate the plaza and use alternate communication methods to disseminate their message. To date, this has not occurred, and ongoing communications with the occupiers have not brought about a solution that will see the plaza return to all the citizens of Nanaimo. An information notice was distributed to the occupiers advising that the occupation is in direct contravention of several sections of the Parks Regulation Bylaw 2008 number 7073, and through this notice a request was made to the occupiers to remove their structures and tents in an effort to bring about a peaceful end to the occupation. In addition, there is an ongoing interest for the health, safety and well-being of the occupiers and the general public as a result of this occupation. As time has passed, downtown businesses and residents have indicated that they are now seeing a negative impact as a result of the occupation of Diana Krall Plaza. Complaints about the occupation of the plaza have increased, and public use of the public space has declined, with planned events being cancelled or moved due to the presence of occupiers in the plaza. Council hopes that the occupiers will voluntarily vacate the plaza. Mayor and Council for the City of Nanaimo met recently and discussed how to bring about resolution to the current situation. As such, staff have been provided with approval and direction to begin legal process of seeking a civil injunction to end all contraventions of Bylaw 7073, including the removal of tents, permanent structures, and chattels. The City would like to conclude the encampment in a peaceful and respectful way. Mayor and Council and staff and the RCMP are encouraging the occupiers to voluntarily vacate the plaza by Thursday, December 1, 2011 at 9 a.m. before the City starts with any civil injunction. So what I'd like to say here is that there is a small window of opportunity, and Matt, I hope that you can get together with your group and have a very quick discussion on it and get back to us, because all of us on this council support your rights, and I can only speak for myself. I think that what you're doing is the right thing. I just have a problem occupying the plaza, and that's my position on it. I can't speak for council on that, but there's still a very small window, and I hope you take advantage of it, and let's sit down and negotiate that thing. Okay, commission reports. Bid for the 2013 Canadian Western... Sorry? Oh, sorry, yeah, right. There's just one proclamation. 2011, December 7 is Run to Remember Day in the City of Nanaimo. And moving to 9A, Commission reports, bids for the 2013 Canadian Western Junior A Hockey Championship. Commission recommendation that Council support the BCHL Nanaimo Junior A Clippers Hockey Club with their bid to host the 2013 Western Canadian Junior A Hockey Championship. Move. Second? All those in favor? Sorry?
Chair.
Oh, okay.
Move that.
Moved by Ms. Johnston. And did you get the seconder?
Second by Westwood.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission meeting held October 26, 2011. Commission recommendation that Council receive the minutes of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission meeting held 26 October 2011. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're going to down to staff reports and then Community Safety and Development, A, 11A, DVP 182 at 5804 Delta Circle. It is requested that Council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 182. Staff recommendation that Council issue Development Variance Permit DVP 182 at 5804 Delta Circle. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to DVP 182? Seeing none. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the appointments of bylaw enforcement officer. Staff recommendation that Council appoint Mr. William Bruce McIntosh Mowat of the City of Nanaimo as a bylaw enforcement officer to enforce the provisions of the city bylaws effective January 2, 2012. Move recommendation. Seconder? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The item C, structure removal order. 4592 Sheridan Ridge Road, unauthorized second suite and a single-family dwelling. Staff recommendation that council, pursuant to Section 7.2 and 7.3 of the Community Charter, order the owner of 4592 Sheridan Ridge Road to remove the illegal suite within 30 days.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second. Move and second.
Question.
Go ahead, Councillor Pashi.
Thank you, Worship. You will recall when Mr. Reid was here a few weeks ago, and at the end of that meeting, it was Mr. Taylor who tried to make a connection, or made a connection between what had happened in his neighborhood, and he used the word summer kitchen. And, you know, though I don't want to repeat it again, I have to admit to you that I am vague in my mind as to what it really was that Mr. Taylor alluded to. So I would like some explanation from staff, if I can, as to what the difference is between what Mr. Taylor alleged and what the case is here. Please.
Your Worship, Councillor Padgey, a summer kitchen is a second kitchen set up in a single-family dwelling that it could not be used as part of a suite. In the circumstance that was raised at the previous meeting, there is a house with 2 suites in it, and it's clearly not a summer kitchen in the second suites. So we don't consider that the same circumstances as summer kitchen in the case of Sheridan Ridge.
Just so that I understand, summer kitchen means what?
I think a lot of people have different interpretations of that. The general rule of a summer kitchen is a second kitchen put in a single-family dwelling for use during the summer for cooking seasons, and in some cultures they like to have a second kitchen to cook in a different part of the house.
With a sink, with a fridge, with a stove, with appropriate plumbing, with appropriate electrical?
Normally, a summer kitchen is clearly for the cooking aspect of it. We have seen both circumstances in which it's a full kitchen with everything you described. In other cases, it's just a stove with countertops. So there's not one rule for all.
Thank you.
Councillor Oldham.
Oh, thank you. I think staff has answered it. It's just that one was a second suite, so there was actually 3 units in the one house. It wasn't really a comparable situation at all, as I understand.
Councillor Kipp.
My point was there was a triplet, not a single, but summer kitchens in the Ontario codes and that where it's too hot to cook upstairs, you go down into the basement, the cool basement, the underground basements in Ontario, and cook in your summer kitchen. And that's some of the things I know from it.
Okay.
For canning.
Canning. Okay, item D has been pulled, so we'll move on to E like Echo and...
Did we vote on it?
Oh, no, sorry, we didn't. So it's been moved and seconded, though. I knew that much. So all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you. The purchase contract for fire engines. Staff recommendation the Council award RFP number 1205 to select the supplier to design and manufacture Type 1 fire engines. A supply contract to WFR Wholesale Fire Rescue Limited of Calgary, Alberta for a completely outfitted fire apparatus for a total cost of $659,847. Would somebody like to move it to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Seconder? Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Sherry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, because we've had a few discussions this last term on contracting out or calling for bids on this issue, on various issues within our community. I know the answer, but I think to staff, was this procedure followed to the normal way of calling for contracts or bids?
Your Worship, this was done as a RFP, or request for proposals, rather than as a tender. And as such, we invited manufacturers of fire apparatus to submit proposals that would meet our requirements to the best of their ability. And rather than submitting based on a detailed set of specifications and a fixed price, this was provide a vehicle that meets our needs the best, and then the details of the price were negotiated after. So an RFP does give more flexibility. We think it's a better way to approach a purchase like this because it allows us to get exactly what we think the community needs. It's used quite regularly for purchases of services, less often for goods, but we think this is an excellent application.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. I understand that we've awarded this to WFR, which is a Calgary-based company, but we make reference to the total price as it relates to US dollars. So I'm just curious, is it the entire price that is US dollar is calculated on? And if so, if it's a Calgary-based company, why are we dealing in US currency?
Chief Lambert, do you want to have a go?
Your Worship, when we were working the details out of the contract, the price was placed in U.S. dollars because the manufacturer is actually in the U.S. So the Calgary company is the distributor and the representative for the manufacturer, and so everything was U.S. based when we got pricing. We've transposed that, and of course, as you know, the U.S. dollar does fluctuate on a daily, if not hourly basis, and the estimates on page 31 of the report is at 1.02, and the total purchase would come out at $659,347.
Based on that exchange?
Based on that rate, that's correct.
Thank you for that. And so WFR is essentially serving as a broker in many regard then?
I would suggest that they're a broker for the manufacturer. They deal with the warranty issues for the manufacturer. They deal with all the service requirements and certainly the sales component.
Thank you. And
that's
finally,
correct.
Finally, Your Worship, on page 30, bullet point 5, it indicates, and given that we're $147 underneath the budget, well done. No additional, so no unexpected cost. The complete outfitted fire apparatus will be within our budget. So there's no add-ons, there's no extras, there's no beyond this specific price for the specific service of this vehicle.
Your Worship, that's correct. The document, or when we went through the contract and looked at the actual specifications and what was being provided to the city, it was within the budget specified.
Your Worship, having said that, though, it's important to understand that this is based on an exchange rate of $1.02.
Right.
And if the exchange rate does change to our detriment, causing the pricing to exceed the budget, we'd have to come back to council and either ask for more money or we'd have to cut something out of the project. So knowing that it's not always pleasant coming to council asking for money, we'd first look at cutting something from the project.
Okay, thank you. So not taking into consideration the U.S. currency, I'm making more reference to a piece of apparatus or equipment that isn't currently quoted on this unit that we're receiving that we may need upon its arrival 9 or 11 months from now.
All the equipment that was outlined for the apparatus has been included in that specific cost. I think, as Mr. Kenning mentioned, the only wild card is the currency rate.
And that's all the apparatus that we need to put this in full service?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Can I just maybe ask a question dealing with that exchange? At what point does that exchange rate, when does it trigger in? If we're talking about giving them a contract, is it at the time that we award the contract that the rate is determined, or are they going to try to hit us up with when the actual vehicle is constructed ready for delivery?
No, the contract, when we sign the contract, that's when the when the actual dollar
rate is confirmed.
Is confirmed, that's correct.
It's below par at this point, so if it was executed in the next little while, we may pick up a couple of points.
And if the Canadian dollar gained parity and exceeded, such as it did several months ago, then of course that would create a surplus in this particular budget. That's correct.
Okay. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, if I may, is my understanding, and for our constituents watching, if we aren't satisfied with the quality of the apparatus, we can cancel the contract at any time without penalty? That's written into the contract?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Sorry.
We negotiated the contract insofar as one of the things on staff's mind, and based on our experience, is that we did want quality apparatus which would lower the overall cost of ownership, which includes the cost of the apparatus plus maintenance over the course of its lifetime. If we find that the quality is not in place, then we can cancel the contract and look at other alternatives.
Cancel without penalty.
Without penalty.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. To Chief Lambert, if I may. Last time we talked about this, you gave a rather good explanation of how it is that one should not be buying fire trucks off the rack, so to speak, and that they're very specialized, and that the apparatus and the equipment leads to different costs. That said, on page 20 in the center paragraph, it reads, a 5-year contract will provide long-term savings on fleet standardization. Does that mean that the 2 trucks that are still to come are going to be exactly the same as the first one? And before you answer that, I think it would be really worthwhile if you explained why this buying of the rack doesn't work. Please.
Your Worship, to address the question, one of the biggest issue with the purchase of fire apparatus is that every community wants fire apparatus just a little bit different. The previous time that we spoke, I made reference to the operating panel at the side of the engine, and in most cases what you'll find is just discharge valves in that location. We've chose for safety reasons for the operator that we would eliminate those and relocate them elsewhere on the apparatus. So that makes almost every apparatus in its own right somewhat custom. A lot of other departments, they'll want ladders in a specific location, or they'll want size of pump to be larger, the plumbing configuration different. So for the most part, fire apparatus generally throughout North America, while it's somewhat similar, it's very different in its own right. Now, moving on to the other component, what we've tried to do in Nanaimo is come up with a apparatus which is going to meet the needs of the community, and we've done that over the years. Certainly, the apparatus that we have now is, for example, very short in wheelbase, so that we can maneuver in tight streets. And in the future, with this contract, we would look at bringing in the same apparatus in the future, other than minor improvements that, like for example, emergency lighting is an area where technology, like with LED and so on and so forth, is improving. So we would look at those minor improvements in the future, but for the most part, it would be the same engines coming in the future as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holdham.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The second to the last paragraph of the report on page 31 makes me wonder why we're worried about the exchange rate. At the conclusion of a preliminary design work with WFR, an engine was designed and quoted at $574,000 US, 585,000 Canadian, using 102, based on the complete prepayment option So that seems to me to be a firm price if it's prepaid. Why would there be any variation? In other words, why would the city be taking the currency exchange risk? The company we're dealing with, that's their risk, isn't it?
Your Worship, we'll eliminate the risk as soon as we get council's authority, and we'll place the order, and then the risk will be gone. But we can't do that till we get your approval.
Okay, because I was just noting that it was up to $1.05 for an American dollar on Friday, and it's just down around $3.5 today, and both would exceed the budget. So you might want to somehow pick your time, but I also don't know why there would be any variation in the quoted price once it comes to us. I don't see why that depends upon the timing of our approval. The next sentence goes on, equipment was quoted at 62,958 Canadian. So some portion of this is already quoted by them in Canadian dollars, presumably. So I'm just a bit concerned that we at least share the risk, if not eliminate the risk, and that this is a firm price.
Anyone want to comment on that?
Well, just that I agree with Councillor Oldham, and we're concerned about it too. We're watching it every day, and as soon as we get the approval, we will take the required action to either make the commitment and at the price within the budget, or we'll have to cut something out of it to come within the budget. We'd like to get this resolved as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, it's not a huge point, but I just think that the person we're dealing, the company, WFR, should deliver for the price they agreed to, and not we shouldn't have to cut anything out of it. Thank you.
Okay. This has been moved and seconded. I'm just trying to get back to my place again. So all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to getting down to the water and garbage rate increase bylaws, corporate services, section F. Staff's recommendation to council receive the report pertaining to waterworks rate and regulation amendment bylaw 2011 number 7004.06, Southwest bulk water rate amendment bylaw 2011 number 7099.02, and municipal solid waste collection amendment bylaw 2011 number 7128.01, which are presented under the bylaws section of the agenda.
Move the receipt of the report.
Second. All those in favor? Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sorry, Councillor Besser, are you on this one or the?
I'll be on the next one.
Okay.
Sorry.
To start, if I may, does this mean that the people of Southwest Extension pay a different water rate than the rest of the city? And if so, what is the difference, and how long will that continue?
Your Worship, the amount that the city charges to Southwest Extension isn't the entire amount that the users in Southwest Extension pay. They out there pay the cost for supplying the water, but they don't pay the cost of our distribution network in the city. They pay the cost of their own distribution network. So their costs include all our supply costs, but they have their own distribution costs. So yes, we do send it to them for less than our users, because they don't have to pay the distribution within the city, whereas our users do.
Follow up, if I may, then. So how can I be sure that the rate that they're paying plus the separate distribution cost is the same as what Nanaimo pays?
It isn't necessarily. The supply cost that we charge them is exactly the same, but they have a different cost structure within their community than we do, and we don't know exactly what they pay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into community services, Cliff McNabb Arena renovation project. Staff recommendation that council approve a $400,000 grant application to the BC Community Recreation Program to be used for the Cliff McNabb renovation project. So if somebody would like to move that to get it on the floor.
So moved to
move
on the floor.
And second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Beswick, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I understand, the recommendation is to simply make application for a $400,000 grant. in which, if we're successful, will reduce the $1.6 million renovation to 1.2. If we aren't successful in the grant application, then clearly this will be a $1.6 million project that will come out of the Bevan Park development redevelopment project reserve.
So out of the facility development reserves, if we're not successful in getting the grant.
And the facility development reserve, what is in that reserve as we speak today?
We generate around between $800,000 and $1 million a year. This, for next year, will drain that facility development reserve just about to the end of it, given other projects we have for the capital plan. So this would definitely help continue with some other projects we have if we get this grant.
Thank you. So just my last question, Your Worship. In my opinion, the project doesn't go far enough. It doesn't go deep enough. So we're replacing roofing and walls and insulation and dehumidification. We're making some improvements, of course, that are frankly repair and maintenance. Is there any consideration for vestibules that are a large part of the problem in that venue for air exchange? Incoming, outgoing, et cetera. In the Zamboni door areas, is there any other improvements considered beyond what is identified here on the report of page 35 from Element?
Overall, the ventilation will improve with the HVAC system upgrades that we'll be providing. We have talked about, Councillor Buswick, which is a good point, about the possibility of doing an ice pit, which would keep the Zamboni inside. We did not include this in this project, given financial constraints. However, that's something we could look at more as we get into the program. An ice pit would definitely help with keeping the system closed. So that's a good point.
And if I may, then, Your Worship, we compound some problems. We're going to fix the existing problem, but we don't fix the entire problem because of not taking that extra step, going that extra step. So are there any of those other projects that we have monies allocated for out of this reserve available to complement what we're doing with this $1.6 million improvement that we're being asked to approve tonight?
In the sense of other projects we could delay or put the funds towards this, do you mean?
Correct. You mentioned that there's monies, but we'll exhaust the monies with other projects that we have and this project.
There's some projects we can move out into future years to provide more for this if we're required.
Your Worship, just to comment that I know that it almost seems like it, but what we're asking Council to do today is only to approve the grant application. The actual project will come forward when you receive the budget on December the 12th, I believe, and that's where if Council wanted to reallocate funds to additional funds to this project, that's where that discussion I think should be held.
Thank you, and I'll just finish, Your Worship. $1.6 million is more than it cost to build this structure in the first place. The 1.6 is more than it cost to build the structure in the first place. And if we wish to get 17 more years out of this structure, then certainly we have to spend money, and it's paid for itself over and over and over again based on its original investment that was made. The project was about $1.2 million, of which about 700 plus was raised by members of our community or more. So with that said, I think that I realize that all we're doing tonight is approving the grant writing to ideally receive $400,000 to put towards this. I know we have to do this, but if we're going to do this, then I'd like to be able to do everything we can do to ensure that we preserve the building, if that's our intent, for 20 more years. That's the point that I'm wishing to make.
Okay. So, I see no further questions. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move receipt of the informational.
Moved and seconded. All of those in favor? Opposed? Any business arising? I don't think that... Okay. Now we turn over to the reconsideration of bylaws to be moved by, I think it's Councillor... Is it Councillor Holden that's doing it? Or Councillor... Sorry?
Reconsideration of bylaws, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, but I thought you were going to do it, weren't you?
Well, I move that the revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw, 2011, number 7142, it's to provide for borrowing for money in anticipation of revenue. I move that the bylaw be finally adopted, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
Is there a second? Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the way that the city council used to adopt bylaws, and we're missing with this modernization. It's just the computers can't keep up the typing speed.
I mean, no one really thought that Councillor Sherry would leave without a shot. I mean, he has to get us going on this one. So are you going to continue on to the others?
No.
Okay. Councillor Greaves, carry on. You've done an outstanding job here. Well said.
2011, number 7004.06, to amend Schedules A and B for water rates, pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That the Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7004.06, pass second reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7004.06, pass third reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7099.02, to amend water rates for 2012, pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7099.02, pass second reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7099.02, pass third reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7128.01, to amend Schedule A for solid waste collect rates for 2012, pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7128.01, pass second reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2011, number 7128.01, pass third reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Introduction of, we're going to action to correspondence.
Receipt of the correspondence.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. Any business arising from that? Moving down into delegations pertaining to items not on the agenda for up to 10 minutes. And the first one we have is Mr. Robert Fuller.
Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert Fuller. I live at 3350 Hammond Bay Road. During the past election, it became quite clear that many candidates on council and about to become new members of council were advocating a core review of the city services into which the fiscal conservancy in the city of Nanaimo falls, I believe. To myself, and I'm sure many others, the recent recommendation of a raise in remuneration for council comes under this. An approximately 25% raise over a period of 3 years seems rather exorbitant just to achieve parity or to come somewhere in bounds with 12 other communities of possibly the same population and size. During the next few years, there's going to be some rather expensive projects that need to be examined in this city and paid for by our taxes. The water treatment plant is just an example of this. On top of this, there is regular and possibly other infrastructure projects that need to be maintained and paid for. The taxpayers' pockets are definitely not bottomless. One must remember that while yours is an extremely important job, it is nonetheless a part-time job. And
I wouldn't totally agree with that, sir.
Pardon me?
I said I would not totally agree with that. I can assure you that I am in there all day long.
I'm not specifically talking to you. I believe that council is a part-time job. You may extend it into a full-time job, but I believe the other websites that I've looked at...
I think they put in their time as well.
Pardon me?
I said I believe the councillors put in their time as well. They worked very hard on the projects.
I never said they didn't put in their time. It's not a full-time job. I do know that if I was running a business and an employee of mine asked for a similar increase, I would have to decline if I was going to maintain the integrity and the solvency of my business. What is council going to say to the city workers at the next contract negotiations, when they may possibly also want a 25% wage increase over 3 years? While not at the high end of the scale, the remuneration for city council is certainly not at the bottom end of the scale, as both Prince George and Kamloops are lower than Nanaimo. Trying to achieve the median only creates a vicious circle, in that the keep up with the Jones effect will continually push this median higher and higher. As such, I would like to recommend that council re-examine this issue and perhaps stay with the cost of living increase, which is certainly above what many of us could only hope for, and to put this to a vote when the new council is sworn in, so that the citizens of Nanaimo can see where our mayor and the new council stand on fiscal conservancy. Please remember that city coffers are not limitless, and that you can quite possibly set a precedent that others may follow. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got some questions. Excuse me, before you go away, sir. Hello. Would you come back, please? We've got some questions for you. Don't run away that quickly. Councillor Ungar.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out that the new council has absolutely every right to make that decision that you're requesting. That already exists, so there's nothing that has to be done to change any rules or anything. It's there for them to do.
When the new council's sworn in.
So, but it's a topic that has to come up when the new councillors have been sworn in. So,
and maybe, Mr. Kenny, you could just clarify, but I think the increase actually doesn't start until 2012? When is the projected? I think it's consistent with when the new council starts,
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I don't have that at hand, other than to say that I know it is phased in over 3 years starting.
Right, but the existing council will not receive it.
Oh, that's correct.
It'll be monies paid to the new council only, and they have the right to recall it, and as you suggest, sir, and they may want to review that at their discretion. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for that presentation. Councillor Sherry and myself did not vote in favour of the increase when it came before this council, but I've learned something, which is that I don't think it is fair, even with the way I voted, to now ask this council to crawl back. That is not the way it's done. But at the same time, I'll say that you have every right to come back here in 2 weeks from now and then make your proposition to the new council. And, I'd be happy to vote on that. Other than that, I want you to know that the time that I spent on this job is 80%, 85% of a full-time job. No kidding.
Okay, Councillor Beswick. Oh, are you still going? Councillor Beswick.
I'm not denigrating the work you put in. Honestly, I'm not.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We got one more. Hang in there.
I would just like to mention that I would be quite comfortable to be leaders in the municipal world and refer to members of council, this one and others, to be referred to as full-time versus part-time. If we take into consideration that 35 hours in many workplaces is considered a full-time week, then I would be quite comfortable to express that I put in more than full-time hours most weeks in this position and refer to myself as part-time, or others refer to this group and myself as part-time. So I'm quite comfortable to put the hours that I put into this position against anybody else's hours relative to a 35-plus hour to 40 to 50-hour work week. I have no problem with it. As a matter of fact, today, I believe that we'll be in overtime today, based on the workload that we, and this is a typical day for us. So I don't have any objection to that. I would also like to say that typically when we deal often with remunerations and labor, and those things are done in camera. And we don't have the opportunity to identify how we voted when we're talking about land, labor, and litigation, which is labor, which is what we're making reference to right now. So I think that everybody that that felt is compelled not to accept the raise has every opportunity to decline it and every opportunity to donate it to a charity of their choice. So I would hope that those people that have been speaking that way will take full advantage of that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Fuller, one of the options presented to us during the decision-making was an independent body meet and decide or determine what salary this council should make. How would you receive that?
I know Kelowna does it. They choose 5 people to do it. I'm not quite sure. I just was looking this on the website and trying to find comparable rates of remuneration. That's a new word for me. I always thought it was remuneration. It's remuneration on every other website except for Nanaimo. I thought you guys had a spelling mistake. But anyways, I would believe, and that sounds all well and good, if it isn't made up of just former government officials. That way the transparency that the public wants nowadays wouldn't, you know, if they all went against the grain of what the public was thinking, everybody would think that they were just going for government officials. I believe it would have to be made up of a broad spectrum of the people in the city, of various disciplines.
Right.
But that sounds, it may take away from what people perceive that council is just voting this because they're council and they can get away with it.
It's not easy to set your own salary. It's a very difficult position to be in.
Yes, it's got to be, it's, you know, like, I didn't mean to denigrate anybody by saying it's a part-time job. I know other jurisdictions put it down as a part-time job. They've even got the rates of pay hourly that you're making.
Chris, there's always the risk that this independent committee could set our wages higher than we'd already established, too. So
They could, but in this day and age, 25% is a big chunk.
I know, I understand.
You know, like, what are you going to say to some city worker that says to you, okay, these fellas just got all this, what about me?
No, I understand.
They say they've got no money.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got Councillor Greaves.
Pardon me?
Very easy. Councillor Greaves first and then Councillor Unger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I make $26,000 a year doing this. Let's start at zero. Tell me how much I should get paid.
I can honestly not say how much you should get paid.
It's kind of a theoretical question.
But I know that I myself and my significant other raise our grandchildren on less than $26,000 a year.
Yeah, but we're talking about us. I mean, you're talking about us, aren't you?
Yes.
So let's keep it to...
I can't say what you can make.
Okay, well then, thank you.
You know, I can't give you a ballpark figure of what you can make. Okay. I just think that the 25% is too much to ask for all in one shot. I know it's over 3 years, but still.
Thank you, Your Worship. 3 years ago, when this present council was elected, we had a process in place that increased each year based on the median of a dozen other communities. Council decided at that time to throw out that process, which I think many councillors will agree now wasn't the right thing to do. Now we're playing catch-up to get back into a proper process that, if it had been left to work, would have worked fine. But when you say a percentage is always what's the starting figure and what's the ending figure. If you take 24% increase of $26,000 or 24% of $126,000, that's a very, very big difference. So when you say that a percentage, that when councillors started falling behind, and I have nothing to gain because this is my last meeting, but I just think that we should have stayed with the process we had, and many will agree with me, and we wouldn't constantly have this discussion, because then we play catch up and it does look bad. I don't like the 24% figure, but as I said, a percentage of a low number or a percentage of a high number are two totally different things.
I fully agree. I fully agree with you.
Okay, sir, we have no further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now, the next thing is the question period, and these are agenda items only.
Of a problem of playing catch up on your income, but I'd like to go to Councillor Johnston and ask, what would you present to a committee or anybody to encourage finding a level of remuneration? I think that's just as hard a problem, unless everybody was having the calendar and counting all the hours and presenting it to a committee to say, what's all this worth? I think you've got just as big a problem, even in support of it. So you look at the average in BC or whatever. So I think you've got quite a problem. I think the biggest problem is Councillor Unger is playing catch up. Regardless if it's a political gain or anything, it should be per year. I would like to ask about this new fire truck. Will it have air, foam, and water capability?
We'll have Chief Lambert. I think the answer is yes. But,
Thank you. And
that's it. Thank you, Chief Lambert. That was very.
And a question to Councillor Padgey. You mentioned a house in my neighborhood tonight. Are you aware that there's 2 levels to the house in my neighborhood, a front door and a basement door on the second level? Are you aware persons go in the front door, different persons go in the basement door? Are you aware both kitchen stoves could be working at the same time? How does that answer a summer kitchen? Are you aware they pack groceries in the front door, pack groceries in the basement door? How do you distinguish something like this to be a summer kitchen? And you had the report before you a year ago with pictures of everything in the basement, and declared by many staff members a suite exists.
But I hear from staff that in the case that we dealt with today...
No, I'm just talking about...
No, but there's a difference here in that house that we talked about tonight had 2 secondary suites, in the opinion of staff. And I am trying to, in my own mind, make the distinction between the house in your neighborhood and the house that we talked about tonight.
Well,
and
I'm trying to ask you a couple of questions,
to the conclusion that there are 2 different things here, and I think Mr. Seward will back me up on that at this point. I don't think this house that we dealt with tonight could be described as a summer kitchen. Possibly the one in your neighborhood could.
Well, I'm trying to ask you questions if you're aware of how the house in my neighborhood is being used.
I don't see every house in the city.
Huh?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of that.
Well, that's fine.
We received the delegation.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Okay, welcome, sir.
On 3165 King Richard Drive. I'm having still a little difficulty with the water rates and why in one case we're saying that the general user rates are going up by 5%, and why in the case of the southeast water rates they aren't going up by 5% as the same way. I'm assuming that 5% a percentage equalizes on the cost. So I don't understand why those rates are only going up by 1.25%, and our rates are going up by 5%.
So there's 2 components to the costs of water. One is the supply cost, and one is the distribution cost. In the case of Southwest Extension, we only supply them water; we don't distribute it. So the supply costs have gone up. We're increasing their supply costs. They look after their own distribution, and I don't know what's happening to their distribution costs.
So what we're really saying is then that our costs went up 1.5% for the water and 3 3/4 for the distribution system. Is that really what we're saying here?
I need some help from the finance department, but I think you could say that, yes.
Okay, I can understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, is there anyone else that'd like to speak to us concerning agenda items only? Okay. Oh, sorry. Well, it's question period on agenda items. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Okay, we need your name and address
yes.
for the file.
I'm Jennifer Rowe. I live at 3400 Country Club Drive. I'm new to Nanaimo. I just recently moved here in July with my husband and my son because we heard Nanaimo was an amazing place to live. So here we are. I'm with the Occupy Nanaimo group, so I'd like to ask a question concerning that, if that's kind of where we're at in the proceedings. Yes, nod, okay. Something, thank you. You said earlier that as a part of a mayor's statement that you support our right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, which of course are charter rights. They're the highest laws that we have in the land.
Yep.
So I was wondering, why does our right to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly have a time limit?
It doesn't.
Okay, good. That's excellent.
Remember what we're talking about with the bylaw. Are you familiar with the bylaw that we're referring to?
Oh, yes.
There's no structures allowed on that site. So we're not talking about freedom of speech or any of the rights that Canadians have. We're talking about structures in Diana Krall Plaza. That's the issue.
Right. And one of the other bylaws that supposedly we're breaking is that we're there overnight with a that we're there at all hours. But according to the bylaw, Diana Krall Plaza is open 24/7.
It's open 24/7.
Yes, it is. I read it in the bylaw. So if the City Council does support Occupy Nanaimo, we'd like to know what are you going to do to continue to support us in the future. I know that you're open to dialogue, but that's, frankly, it's not enough, or we wouldn't be occupying a plaza. People wouldn't be sleeping out in the rain and the wind. If we thought that the systems that we currently have in place in our society were working, we wouldn't be occupying. And I take strong objection to the word camping. People think that we're camping out. Camping implies marshmallows, campfires, and sing-alongs. We're occupying. It's a sustained
this is a question period, not necessarily a statement period. So you have questions?
So my question is, what are you going to do to continue to work with us in the future?
Well, were you not here for the entire meeting?
I was here for the first part.
Okay, because in the meeting, what we've tried to encourage the people to do, and those people I've spoken to, Matt for one, and others, to get together with us, but there is a mandate now that we will get an injunction if we're not able to come to some satisfactory agreement. So it's back in your court, or those people from Occupy Nanaimo, to get down to the city and make an arrangement and see what kind of resolution we can get. But we cannot let it go on indefinitely. That's the point.
Why not?
Because we cannot. There's a bylaw. And you have to understand one basic premise we have, and you've been quoting the law, and I respect that. But you can't have laws for some and not for others. The bylaw says you can't do it. And just because you feel you can doesn't mean that you can. So what would happen if another group came along and wanted to occupy it in a totally different group? Does that mean they have the rights too?
I would hope so, because what we're doing is a part of an ongoing protest,
but
which
it might
is
be
a part
something
of our right to freedom of speech and assembly, which basically trumps your bylaw.
But listen, now we're talking about, there's no restriction, you're right. People can come down to Diana Krall Plaza, they can do all the picketing and providing of literature and background and speeches, that's fine. It's the overnight stays that's the issue that's contravening the bylaw.
Specifically the structures.
Structures is correct. That's the issue.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Now, yeah.
Earlier, a number of events.
I don't know if we have that figure. Maybe Mr. Churchill, do you have some figures on that?
So the original one that caused the first issue dealt with Halloween, and what occurred there was an agreement with Occupy to make arrangements with the Downtown Business Association in the city to have an event occur. And the agreement was that there would be fencing and the event was going to proceed. It proceeded in the first hour, then there was disagreement over the access and egress of Occupy versus the area that the children were going to have their Halloween event in. And then about 2 hours into it, what happened was the fence was actually started to being taken down by the Occupy persons who didn't necessarily agree with the rest of their spokespersons. So that was the first thing where it failed. As a result of that, various live events did not occur that the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Area was going to hold there, because what happened is the square then became a square of occupiers, and the use diminished the ability to hold events. There was no other target audience there other than those who were camping there and protesting. Recently on the weekend, there was an intention to hold a CFL game there and use the live site again, but it was determined that it couldn't occur because the people weren't really willing to go down there and participate in those events when the Occupy movement was going on. There was also a meet and greet with Santa Claus at the venue. Again, had to be changed because to try and get parents and others to come down and bring their families down is very difficult when you have a protest going on, no matter how well-meaning that protest is. So it's had a real impact where the use just isn't there. People aren't coming to it because it's involved with this statement of the Occupy, which is well and good as a protest, but what it does have these negative effects. The events have therefore been canceled or altered or changed or haven't occurred because of the fact that Occupy is occupying that area.
Okay, my original question has been canceled. You mentioned one.
You had mentioned a football game. Well, that's the first I heard of that one even being proposed as a live event. Other than that, there was the Halloween party, and from all the comments I've heard about that, people were really overjoyed about that Halloween event, and the Occupy did not have that much effect. How many events are planned for the plaza between now and April?
Oh, God, I don't know we'd have that information.
Well, no, it isn't immaterial.
They don't book it. They don't book a plaza that far in advance.
Well, actually, they do. Halloween was booked far before.
We don't have that information for you tonight.
Yes, it was,
but if you contact the city tomorrow, we probably could get that information for you.
Now, you mentioned many complaints. I hazard to guess that the DNBIA may be one of those groups complaining. Well, in this respect, they do not speak for all of their members. I am the chair of the 710 Club. We are a member of the DNBIA, and we don't have a problem with Occupy Nanaimo. So if it's the DNBIA, the board, that are saying this, they do not speak for all their members. I would hazard to guess a number of the stores in the downtown that have benefited from Occupy being there would disagree with them if they are complaining. Now, which bylaw is it exactly that you are talking about?
Bylaw is 2008-2008-7073.
And that's the Parks, Recreation and Culture?
I don't know.
That's overnight.
It's whatever one.
So does the Parks, Recreation and Culture bylaw pertain to every public space or strictly parks, recreation, and culture spaces?
That is one.
So in this case, Diana Krall in particular is a public square, so it's defined as our open spaces, areas that are used by parks and maintained by parks for public purposes. And if I haven't got that answer complete, I would rely on Richard Harding to tell me further. But Diana Krall is a public square, and therefore it's defined as a park under the Parks bylaw.
Well, actually, all of the parks are listed, and Diana Krall is not a park. It is not listed as a park. It is a public space, like you say. There are a number of public spaces in Nanaimo. So I hazard to guess that if you try and use that bylaw in the injunction, a lawyer might challenge that, and you may not be able to make it go through. That'll be up to you guys if you do proceed with an injunction. Fredericton, New Brunswick. Their Occupy is on the lawns of City Hall.
Okay, now these are questions. Remember what we're dealing with here. This is question period. Question period.
I am bringing you a question.
Okay, but we got an awful lot of statements out of you too, so let's try to stay with the question period.
Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Because there's other speakers who want to be heard too.
Yes, I know. And you're being paid to sit here, and I know it's, we just heard all about that, so this is fine. Fredericton, New Brunswick, their Occupy is on the lawns of City Hall. They recently had a tree lighting ceremony. They asked the Occupy movement to move to another area of City Hall while they set up the tree. They have no intention of getting an injunction to make them leave. Would you be amenable to the Occupy movement moving to City Hall?
Depends. I don't know. Academic question. I can't answer that now. I don't know what would happen. It depends on how the injunction is phrased and how it's accepted by the courts. What I'd like to see is, instead of trying to take that tact on it, Gord, I'd rather see us sit down with them and see if there's resolution. This is what we've been trying to do in the meetings I've held with them. And we're trying to say there is a finite amount of time available to it. Now, you're making statements, so let me make some statements too. And I'm just simply saying that, not that patiently, but you're waiting, I appreciate that. But the point is that if they can come up to a resolution, we're trying to say to them, time is of essence. And we've tried this for a couple of weeks, and we just want people to understand that something has to be done. The status quo can't go on the way it is, and if we can get a resolution, great. That's my first preference and my best choice.
I realize that, and I realize you met with them today for a considerable amount of time. There were 4 of them met with you. But
we had 3 meetings prior.
I know you have had a couple of meetings prior, and you yourself have been down there and seen the site, as have another number of other councillors. I don't believe the Occupy group were the ones that brought up the term injunction Thursday. So that, to me, sounds a bit more like a threat than trying to work together. So I think
the election.
I would like to hope that you would take that off the table, and my question to you is, work with them and give it some time.
Well, we hope that that's what will happen.
So do I. Thank you.
I respectfully ask that you give us your endorsement. That's one of the
remember,
things
this is question period, so this is the question?
Would you consider giving us, as Occupy Movement of Nanaimo, your endorsement as the City Council?
I would suggest that we have to sit down and negotiate this thing. I think you've heard the meeting tonight and come away with a resolution on this thing. I think the outcome is pretty well predicted.
I did mention that this morning, and I think somebody also said it was legitimizing the movement. So I kind of thought we had talked about a little at the very briefest, just touched on the fact that we were looking for an endorsement. I mean, we are not asking for much. We just want some recognition from the council that this is a valid movement. And you've already said that. You've already said that too.
I'm not questioning that. We're not talking about the movement, you see, and let's not get confused here. We're talking about occupancy and structures in Diana Krall Plaza. That's all. Not about the movement, and not about all the work that you put into it.
My question is, again, would you give us your endorsement as council?
Not at this time. We will not.
So
until we can get resolution on it. That's what we're trying to get first.
Can I ask you a question then? You referred to in the prior meeting we had in your office, you were concerned about Occupy Nanaimo's legacy?
Yes.
Are you not concerned about your own legacy?
I think, if we're playing with words on it, I think we've made our position. We've given you the dates on it, and that's what we're going to be working with. And we'd like to see resolution. We'd like to have you people come back with a position. We've told you clearly what we're prepared to do if we can't get resolution. That's the only alternative we've got. Okay?
I just wanted to ask Councillor Kipp, was it a school that you said this morning that you spend $70,000 on security to keep a school open that is basically an empty building?
No, Your Worship. I just want to say that I was one of the people that voted to legitimize. How's that, Fred? That's politics, eh? I can't bring that up? I can. I can mention sue me. What I said was we had our old waterworks building up by the Morel Sanctuary, and we spent some $70,000 a year keeping that building open. I, in fact, during that time was looking to put a use into that building, and it wasn't used. It was kept, and it was it's been mothballed kind of, and we cost some $70,000 a year to have security maintain or watch that building during that time. So it wasn't a city school building. It was a city building. Thank you.
Councillor Sherry, do you have some comments?
The question was put, you're looking for endorsement. Endorsement of what? As indicated this morning, okay, you have the ability to occupy that space as a walk around and gather individually or collectively. But the problem is with the bylaw and the way the bylaw is contained, and the matter of structures and that doesn't include that. You get that resolved, and then you come back to the council and say, okay, we're adhering to that. Are you going to give us the opportunity to go down there and speak and through normal hours of operation? Then I think you'd be showing some good faith not only to the council but the community, and you might be surprised that you might get the endorsement from the council to operate in that fashion. But the big thing is there's rules and regulations. They have to be followed, and everybody, I have to follow them just as well as you. And let's go from there.
I still believe that we would benefit greatly from an endorsement from you. So I ask you once again, will you endorse us to give us some legitimacy?
We made it clear tonight, and if you don't understand the statement we've made, then I'm sorry. But we've made it clear tonight when we read that, and we'll give you copies of it, and that's the city's position on it, okay?
All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak on it? You have just briefly. Go ahead.
I just wanted to answer the question personally because I can't speak for council. I personally endorse what I understand of the goals of Occupy Nanaimo and the Occupy Worldwide movement, which is to draw attention to the growing inequality in the distribution of income and wealth, and to try to fix the problems with our society and our economy. I can support that. What I can't support is the erection of tents on a public space for an indefinite period. That, to me, draws away from the main issue and starts to become the issue. The tents become the issue instead of the unequal distribution of wealth in the world. And so I'm pretty frustrated with this right now because I want to support what you support, but I can't support indefinite occupation of a public space.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matthew O'Donnell, I have two questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first question, obviously, as it pertains to the tents and the bylaw violations, I think that's something that our people and the city can discuss between now and Thursday. But my question is, will this council and you, Mr. Mayor, at least support the idea of the Occupy movement, similar to what this councilman just said? Could, in the interest of showing that we're a mutual side of mutual respect, can this council and you, Mr. Mayor, at least support the idea of the Occupy movement and let the tents and the bylaw negotiations take place between now and Thursday? That's my first question.
Okay, well, you know, in a situation like this, I don't think that we could speak as a council. I could speak individually.
Could you please speak individually?
Yeah, sure. And my own personal thing, and I've said this to you before, Matt, as you know, that I support what you're doing. I don't have a problem with it. And I admire the people that have stood up and taken a certain amount of flack for doing it. But the problem is, for me, and Councillor Holdham just referred to it, is you've got to do it in a legal right way. And the right way is that you can't have those overnight tents. We've been through this several times on Diana Krall Plaza. It's the bylaw that we're having problems with. But I respect and admire the stuff you're doing, and as long as it's lawful, you have every right to do it. It's just you can't stay there in tents overnight in Diana Krall Plaza. That's the whole issue that we're dealing with. And I don't think it's all that onerous. We're not trying to forbid people from free speech or anything like that at all. We're simply saying the bylaw says you can't be there overnight. That's the issue.
Thank you.
Do you have some questions?
Anyone else on council like to answer that at all?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
We have Councillor Holdham. Do you want to? And then okay, Councillor Kidd.
Yeah, I support the movement. I think the distribution of wealth across the world has changed dynamically in the last years. The last 10 years, it's been phenomenal. We've called it a growth economy, and all it's grown is our national debt. So I don't believe it's a huge growth economy, and I do support the movement. I don't want to lose the movement in a way that says it's a fight over homelessness, it's a fight over people not working, it's a fight over taking back our space. Public spaces as far back in time and plazas are for exactly this point. That's my belief from a design perspective, of a community perspective, and building community. Tiananmen Square, ring a bell? That was when I was 35 years old. No, they weren't allowed to, they weren't even allowed to voice their concern because they got gunned down by the people we now want to stimulate our economy with, the Chinese government. So from my perspective, there is a rule, and I understand rules, but I understand the worldwide movement is sick of our rules. All right? But I'm elected to this position to try and sort of reconcile differences sometimes. That's part of what I believe my job is, to listen to people and try and come up with new solutions and new changes, which I know this council and my peers that I'm going to lose tonight have worked diligently over the 15 to 20 years I've been involved to protect the environment, to protect people, to work on a localized economy where we do have jobs for people and we do have a lifestyle where we can speak out and openly speak out. I don't want to lose the movement. I I've been asking now recently for something like a speakeasy corner or a place where we can display these current issues in our community. I think the council has been well aware of it. A couple other people have mentioned that might be a good idea. So, and I know, and quite honestly, this hasn't been that long of a process. It's been like 6 weeks. And like I've said before, we've got slum landlords that we can't act on as quickly, right? And so that's a concern to me. But I don't want to lose the movement's real thing it's fighting for, is from some equality in the world, not the massive separation of middle class or the destruction of middle class, and the protection of the homeless and people that are poor. So from our perspective, we do have laws, and we can change them, and we don't dynamically change that quickly. We change very slowly. But I think this movement is impressive, and the iceberg thing is there. We've got emails from people that haven't been there all the time, and they do support it. And I honestly think that everyone here supports your issue, but we are getting some flack from other parts of the people we represent too. So we have to come to some conclusion. And in this press release, I'm a little disappointed because I thought we were going to give you the press release so you'd know. We did change it so that you would speak tonight so the public can hear you and see you. And it does say here, the city may seek. That's the first line, the first important, may. Not shall, will. So from a language perspective, I think this is saying that we have the ability to do this as a group. We don't really want to. We want to be peaceful. I know our bylaw people and our police try and get people to comply versus writing tickets and that. And I don't think it'll help us to go there, but I believe we are trying to make a difference and deal with a whole community issue. But I really, truly appreciate it, and I support your issue, what you're doing.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Just briefly, because my colleagues have said very much about it, Matt. I respect you. I respect your friends and fellows in the movement. I endorse and support the movement, but I do not support the occupation of Diana Krall Plaza.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Bishop. The majority of things that have been said are all extremely accurate, and everything that the people that have come to the podium is equally respectful and respected, I believe, by all of us. And I think we all support the occupation in Nanaimo and beyond, of course, movement and your objectives. And you've made such a positive influence on so many people that would not have otherwise felt the same way or even had the ability to reframe their thinking because of what your peaceful protest has been. And it's been so positive. And I would honestly hope that within the next 72 hours, you'll be able to advance your messaging through mitigating any negativity that your such a positive influence has been, and to really take every effort that you possibly can to reach out to mayor and council beyond this evening. We're not going to come to a resolution here tonight, I don't believe, but I do think that you've conducted yourself and your people have conducted yourself so professionally, and you've been so respected in what you've done. I would only encourage you to please don't lose any of your respect that you've earned, and be extremely positive as you move forward tomorrow morning when you get up to come and reach out and try to move this forward in as positive moving forward as you've been in your history so far in the 6 weeks, because it has been very impactful. And I know I respect far more now because I didn't understand. I didn't, and I plead ignorance. I'm very respectful for what you've done, and you guys, as a young organization, when you've spoken to the mayor and spoken to all of us, you've always been very respectful, very professional, very articulate, very educated in what your messaging, and that I think is why we're being so, I hope that's why we're being so conciliatory and wanting to work with you. So there's a huge thank you. There's a huge reach out of thank you from us to you. Now we just need to work together to manage this properly. And I hope we can do that. I really do. I think we all do. I know we all do. Thank you.
Councillor Patsy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you again, Matthew. I think you know where I stand on the whole movement. It is a new time, and new things are going to happen. And we'll have a new council in a week, and we'll talk, and we'll find some solutions. And it's a two-way street. I have to be honest with you. When you talked this morning about the homeless situation, and you wanted to make the homeless part of this building you were looking for. I'm a little afraid that you don't have the
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I should clarify. I didn't specifically say that all homeless people should be welcomed into a building if we did have that building.
You know what I refer to, which is that the homeless people have to be dealt with in a very professional manner. And as I said this morning, Councillor Unger and myself worked on that for a long time, and we know what we're talking about, I think, at this point. That said, I'll repeat again, it's a new time, in part through Occupy globally, and we know we have to deal with it one way or the other, but we need to do it with respect, with understanding. I would suggest moving from Diana Krall to some other place is not going to do it. I know you have to come to conclusions by consensus, and you'll have another General Assembly, but I would really hope that you will try and steer that dialogue into something that has a good chance of mutual respect and success, and getting something started that needs to be started. Thanks.
Okay. I see no further questions. Thanks, Matt. That's great.
I do have my final question.
Sure.
It's very brief, and it's something that I, as an individual, have been wondering a lot, since this whole process started. Taking into consideration, I guess, the fact that bylaws in any city can be changed, but human rights cannot. In your all individual opinion, what is more important? City bylaws that can be changed, or human rights that we're all entitled to? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you remove your hat? Thank you, sir. We just need your name and address.
My name is Brent O'Brien, 360 Calderby Place. I work full time. I don't have the opportunity to come down and meet you guys during the daytime or anything like that, so I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to speak to you guys. A few things I heard tonight about excuse me, I'm sorry, conciliatory and wanting to work with each other. I believe that is something that the Occupy movement definitely wants to do and has shown a lot of respect, and you, therefore, towards us in trying to hope to accommodate. Thank you very much. However, I think it is becoming about the tents and not about the movement, right? So I would put upon the shoulders of the City Council and implore them to please, well then why wouldn't you want to maybe necessarily put towards resources towards helping encourage the Occupy movement, towards having a space, toward the message of the Occupy movement can get out, towards there can be facilitation of future processes, whether or not that's changing of bylaws to allow Diana Krall Plaza or and as such to continue in the future. I think there's an opportunity to be a trendsetter here. I have a question, and that does also relate to more economic and financial things. There's lots of concerns recently these days about the actual cost of monitoring activists, the security costs related to the Occupy movement or any other, that's a cost these days. It's a big deal, right? $1 billion went into the G20. Why not give the activists a place to be? They'll tell you what they want. It'll be free. It won't cost a darn thing, eh? So would it be more economically and financially viable to provide the Occupy movement a place to be than to pay for the security, insurance, and maintenance costs on a vacant city property, in addition to the added costs of activist surveillance, security, and persecution of the Occupy movement, combined with any future endeavors of this community or the City Hall to work on democratic reform, environmental safety, and providing jobs for everybody and protection of homeless and the rights? As such, we would love to be a lobby group, we would share the burden upon the council of coming up with some good ideas.
Okay, thank you, sir. I see no questions.
That's the end of it. That's all but that's a question, to just put to you guys. Would it be more economical to give us a place to be?
Could be. Thank you. That's it? Yep. Do you have something, sir? You're wandering down the hill.
Please,
Okay.
Is there
I see
any
no questions, so
explanations?
you're finished. That's it.
That's a question, but no answer?
We have no. We have no answer to that. I can't tell you the answer to that question.
Would city work towards banging the numbers and see if it would
I
be
think
more
we've talked to
economical?
Matt already, and we said that the first step is to try to negotiate how we're going to end with Diana Krall Plaza.
There's been a suggestion. There's been a demand.
but that's
There's
the
been
first
a
thing we
talking
need to
point,
deal
and
with.
so we have to talk about whether or not that's it might be economically, financially better.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly take that in consideration, but I can't give you an answer on that. Okay, who's next?
Councilman, Your Worship, my name is Rodney Pohl. I live at 2157 Woodthrush Place. I've been at the Occupy since the first day. I do stay at home because I'm missing a leg, but I've been supporting it. And my question is related to when you had mentioned, Your Worship, about if we wanted to move up to City Hall, or how you're going to frame the question, or the eviction, or what does that mean? Like, are you looking at a way of saying we can't go somewhere else, or like I think
All
we'd
we're
like to
dealing with
negotiate
at this point, I guess this is difficult for people to grasp here, but we're really only dealing with structures in Diana Krall Plaza. We're not talking about the movement. We're not talking about infringement on freedom of speech. We're simply talking about the fact that a bylaw prohibits structures on Diana Krall Plaza. That's the issue.
Okay.
Now, is there a problem with that, or is there something?
I was just wondering, because the way I heard it is like maybe you might add into that on Thursday.
Well, we've got 2 or 3 days to negotiate something, and I hope we can do that.
I'm very thankful that we do have those days to negotiate and to talk about this. I hope that we have a lot of opportunity to do that. And tomorrow night we're having a meeting, probably 60 or 70 people, and you're welcome to come. And as far as I know, it's going to be at Demeter's Coffee Shop, and anyone that would like to come, it's going to be wide open. If we need more space, it would be nice to actually have another place to go to, and I'm not sure where that might be. Maybe Rendezvous next door or something, wherever we can find a place. Maybe there might be a place that you might know of. There's something that we all look at, and that is the powers that are over all of us, and that is huge. Like when you look at it, like how our economic situation is the way it is, how do we work together to change this when we already have so much, like we have all the natural resources in Canada. We have people that want to work, and yet we see logs going out of here. So we have an opportunity to really negotiate together, and I think that the insight is that with your expertise and our expertise, that we can come up with solutions to the problems here and then further that into the world around us. So we have this opportunity right now, and I think it's sort of our last kick at the can. And I have grandchildren. I have a son that's very sick right now, and I saw something awesome last night. My son's got cancer. He's in Victoria, and somebody come up with an idea to have a fundraiser, and it was at the Jinglepot pub last night, and it raised over $7,000 towards my son for his cancer, because he doesn't have any money to pay his bills, and I don't have that anymore either. So my ex-wife was so impressed, she couldn't believe it either, and nobody could. Like, how do you raise in one night in one pub $7,000? Well, that's what we have to do. We have to pool our resources as people with knowledge, people with money, and we have to take that as a grassroots and start here and expand that to those around us. There's no reason why anybody should be unemployed in British Columbia or Canada or Nanaimo. We have it. We have it all. Let's work together and make a change. And how? I'm so happy that you guys are willing to look at this, and that we are willing to take our time, and that we now have an opportunity, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for the next few days that we have to discuss this. As far as the space that we're in now, you know, it's tough on the people that are down there, but I see community forming, and I left you that sheet a week ago, and maybe we should make some copies of that, put it in the library, put it in the banks, put it around town, and I'd like to get that back because I borrowed it from Chad.
No, we have it.
But yeah, that is an awesome statement there of community, and I think that kind of love is what we need to spread. And one thing here is that even larger than ourselves, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So it isn't here that is. It's the 1% that power is. So none of us are in that 1%. Maybe some of us want to be, but I did that, and I didn't like it, and I ended up losing a lot over trying to strive for riches in this world. So we have an opportunity, and I'm just glad we're working together on this right now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilor Hogan, you want to...
Just one sentence, Your Worship. There are a number of really good ideas that are coming up right now. I just want to let you know that we're not in a forum as the City Council to negotiate or respond right now. We're past the point in our meeting where we can make any motions or do anything. So we're just taking questions at the moment. So if you were expecting motions, they're not going to come now. But you do need to exercise that opportunity that the last person just spoke about, and to work with staff to see what the alternatives are.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Ryan Porteous, 304 Rockridge Place. I'll try to keep this brief. I have a few questions. The first one being, does it contravene city bylaw to physically obstruct a fire lane?
Obstruct a what?
Physically obstruct a fire lane. Is that a contravention of city bylaw?
Fire lane. Well, fire lane, yeah, sure.
Yes, it is. There is a fire lane between the Coastal Community Credit Union and the Vancouver Island University. Is that correct?
The library, you mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, the fire lane between the Coastal in Diana Krall Plaza, between the Coastal Community Credit Union.
What your question is?
Well, what I'm getting at is I'm wondering if the DNBIA contravenes city bylaw by placing a fence in the middle of the fire lane in Diana Krall Plaza, and if that would endanger the occupiers behind that fence.
Well, it's not there now.
I don't know. You know, that's... Unless...
Staff know anything?
Okay, my next question is, and if I could just, to expedite the process, I'll ask if you could answer with a show of hands.
No, we're not doing that. This is a question period, okay? And I think really what we need to do is wind this up pretty quickly, because we're not going to get resolution tonight. The resolution is going to come in the next 2 or 3 days.
Yes, I understand.
Listen to me.
You're
Just
not
listen to
letting
me.
me answer my
Listen
question.
to me. Just listen to me. And so what we need to do is sit down in good faith and negotiate this. This is not the forum for it. This is not the forum for it. But what we want to do is sit down in the next 2 or 3 days and come away with some meaningful dialogue. I'd like to think we can get resolution on it, but I can't say that we definitely will. But we're not going to accomplish anything tonight by just dragging this on and on and on.
Thank you.
And so if you have got a quick question, please make it.
Yeah. Do you think that negotiation involves compromise?
Could. Sure, it's reasonable. Yeah.
Do you think negotiation involves compromise?
I would suggest by whom? I would suggest that compromise and understanding is always part of a negotiation.
Thank you.
On both sides.
Just remind you, Matt, it's question period. Question period. Not statement period, it's question period.
I understand. Great. My name is Matthew Orick. I live at 771 Arbutus Avenue. My question for the council, if you'll give me a minute to compose myself, it's been a long time.
Take your time. Take your time.
Thanks, guys. Anyway, my question for the council is directly in regards to our occupation at Diana Krall Plaza and the fact that I've been at most, if not most of the meetings with council, with the city itself. I was not able to attend the meeting this morning with council, but I have been present for any and all conversations that we've had directly at City Hall. And we've talked about ways that we're willing to consolidate for you guys, ways of concession that we are willing to give. Oh, no, I'm okay. Thank you very much, though. Ways of concession that we're willing to give is in if we are given an alternative place to go, we'll leave. However, the only concession that I've heard from the city is that they'll give us this one-time forum to videotape our message and give it out to the people. My question for you, Council, is what are you guys willing to do for us if we are willing to leave the plaza for you, although it is public space and we are the public?
That's what we're to talk about.
Well, that's what we're going to hopefully negotiate in the next 2 or 3 days. Well, I said it tonight. We're not going to be able.
The second question would be then: how do you expect us to be able to delegate what we are willing to do when we have no idea what council and the city is willing to do for us?
Very simple. What's that?
You have the full right to remain there as long as you want to. You just have to move the structures. And once they're moved, you'll be surprised how easy things will go in a real hurry. That's the only thing. You keep on bringing up being removed. Nobody has to be removed. You have a right to be there 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is your right, but you cannot set up residence there.
So in your personal opinions then, Council, what would be your reason that this bylaw that prevents people from erecting structures in public spaces that could very well house people from rain, snow, sleet, hail, things that we potentially could endanger us as people? What is your guys' position on this bylaw that it prevents us from erecting tents?
The bylaw says you can't do it.
That's not the question. My question is, what is council's position individually on the bylaw?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, Matt, I know prior to the 6 weeks of occupation, we've worked on funding the emergency shelter that was only opened and only sent out on an email if it was bad weather. This council, in fact, chose to open it and say when it was closed versus when it would be open. We've also gone through, I'll say, a tumultuous couple of years of trying to build a housing strategy for more than 8 or 10, and the last 2 years have been very hectic. So we've been working on those issues to help people with homeless issues. Further, we've been trying to rewrite our laws and bylaws so that we can create the ability for businesses to function a little easier and so they can employ people, and hopefully we look at hiring and buying local policies. So we're trying, but I say it's really slow for me too.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
Kara Brunt. I live at 347 7th Street, and I understand that this is question period. I have to first say things that I have seen and heard from this council that lead me to my questions, all right? So first of all, you've stated that you're attempting to engage in negotiations with Occupy Nanaimo. However, your offer of a one-time public forum has not changed since day one. And I believe you have also recognized that it does involve give and take, usually in negotiations.
Yeah, well, that was only a suggestion. We simply said if that would be something you would be interested in, and it appears that you weren't, and that's fine.
Okay.
There's no requirement.
But there's been no forthcoming, been no back and forth, is all I'm saying. Also, you've stated that our right to free speech does not have a time limit, yet you've also told us that we have until Thursday. That sounds
structures,
like a time
there's a big difference, madam, between structures and free speech, okay?
All right, and I'd like
the bylaw deals strictly with structures in Diana Krall Plaza.
Yes, and you continue to tell
Listen,
us
let's
that
keep this organized, and I want everyone to listen, because as soon as this starts breaking down and there's yelling, that's the end of the meeting. Right away, no hesitation, the meeting's over. No, go ahead.
You continue to tell us that the structures and the tents are the problem, and that we are not understanding that this breaks the bylaw, and that is the problem. However, from our perspective, you are not understanding that the tents and structures are part of the message that represents our right to free speech. Mm-hmm. So, you also have said that you support our right to free speech. My question is, firstly, what action has this council taken to show that support of our right to free speech? What actions have you taken to show that?
We haven't taken action.
Well, all I'm suggesting, with some difficulty, is that we take the next 3 days to negotiate it. I've made myself very clear, as best as I can, that we're not in a position tonight at a council meeting to negotiate this thing.
I'm not asking for negotiations.
So, I mean, I don't think we're really doing anything that's very positive, and I don't want us to get so entrenched in our positions that we're not going to be able to negotiate in good faith. I think what we should do is accept what's happened, start afresh tomorrow, let's get some negotiations going and see if we can get resolutions. But debating this back and forth as the clock ticks is not going to resolve anything, I don't think.
So that there's no answer then? There has been no actions taken?
There's going to be. We're going to talk about this in the next 3 days, I hope.
Okay, so you will be taking action to support our right to free speech by talking to us in the next couple of days before the injunction comes on Thursday. All right, my second question is regarding the bylaws, because it's your position that the tents are not a part of our message and therefore are breaking the bylaw. We had someone speaking earlier on the bylaw including the fire and ambulance access lanes remaining open. That was broken by the fences placed up by the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association. So my second question is, why is this council selectively enforcing the bylaws?
Could you tell me how long that fire lane was allegedly blocked for? I don't know anything about it.
Well, the fence went all the way from the credit union to the library, so that is the fire lane that as we have been made aware by the fire department.
But what did you say, some other group contravened it in some manner?
The DNBIA placed that fence there, and that blocked the fire lane.
My understanding, I saw the fence, my understanding that it went parallel with the plaza.
No, we spoke to police and fire personnel as well that same day who did acknowledge that it was blocking that access lane.
And is it still there?
No,
how long was the fence up for?
So, okay, so there's also no answer to the question as to why council is choosing to enforce this bylaw. That is a choice that you're making.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll try. The fire lane issue, was the whole access and egress to the square blocked? Yes. Or was there other exit areas out?
Not for ambulance or fire trucks. The only access to the back of this plaza was blocked, yes.
But you could access by the stairs at the back, that was the only way, you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah, and fire trucks obviously can't go up there.
I'm not certain fire trucks would go up onto the concrete structure other than for first aid, and they would normally walk to the person if there's a ditch or that. They wouldn't drive a truck up onto there anyhow. There wouldn't be a truck, and the ambulance usually doesn't go off-road or anything like that. They would take the dolly to the person. I'd be more concerned if they had put a wall around you and allowed no personal exit for you. So I don't think that the fence, I'm not impressed with the fence being put up between the protesters and the kids. I'm not impressed that DNBA didn't want the people to participate as Occupy Nanaimo had offered. They were willing to give out things. So I don't think a law was contravened with the fence. I'm not fussy that the fence was used as some form of segregation, but I do not believe it blocked all of the fire exits or access to fire. Personal opinion from a background. So thanks. I hope that answered your question.
Sort of. I mean, we're operating on information that we were given by the fire department when we had some tents in that passageway that were not completely blocking it. We were told that that was blocking the fire lane, and we moved those tents. However, the fence that was placed there was far more of a blockage than the few tents that we had there. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship, members of council, my name is Larry Whaley. I live at 5234 Sherbourne Drive in north end of Nanaimo. I first want to say one very brief thing, and that is about a totally different subject. I believe that people should be paid a living wage, and I believe that you are people. So I don't have any objection, I want to make that clear, to the raise if that brings you somewhere near a living wage. My question is, Mr. Mayor, I have a little difficulty understanding the process that we've gone through to get to where we are now. And so I wonder if you agree that because this item was not on the original, this item being Occupy, was not on the original agenda for tonight's meeting, you're giving the impression that you do not want discussion to take place. You don't want public input on this. If it had been on the original agenda, when I checked Wednesday, I think it was, or Thursday morning, I would have probably asked to come and speak to the issue. My question is, do you understand that by going this roundabout through the in-camera meeting and not putting it directly on the agenda, you give the public the impression that you'd rather they didn't have a comment on this?
Well, I think they've had a comment tonight.
Well, not everybody. There, I'm sure, are people who, if they had known that this was going to be discussed...
I think probably the issue was it was a very last minute... Go ahead. Do you want something? Yeah, it's good. Let him finish.
Yes, you can bring this forward at a future council meeting, bring it to staff's attention that you would like to address this, and that can be, anybody can make a presentation to council. This was at a last-minute decision that had to be made when the group appeared and asked to appear before an in-camera council meeting.
Normally, the cutoff is around Thursday morning, I think, of the previous week for a Monday night council meeting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but the decision's already been made to proceed in the way you've laid out. It's a little bit late for public input now. My view of public input is that you have your input before the decision is made, not after. And by going the way you did, and yes, you say it was in a hurry because of the meeting, this could have been at the next council meeting.
Well, I'd just like to correct you, Mr. Whaley. The original agenda that went out with our packages has item number 6, delegations to pertaining to agenda items, had 10 minutes on there. Okay, and under the original deal, it was other business, not on the agenda business. And
I'm not following you, Mr. Sherry. Could you try again? I'm a little thick here. What was on the agenda as item number 6?
On the original agenda,
yes,
the gentleman that spoke earlier was on the very last item of the agenda.
The Green Party, are you talking about?
That's right.
Yes, I saw that, but that was under items not already on the agenda. So how do you get on the agenda with an item that's not there? And how does the public get to know about that before you make the decision? Anyway, it's my impression. I'll leave it with you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Just 3 quick questions. I'm John.
Take your hat off, John, and give us your name and address.
I'm John Line. I live on Milton Street, 408 there. I just got a few quick questions for you guys. First one that comes to my mind is, are you aware that the Diana Krall Plaza is facilitated by the Downtown Nanaimo Business Association, not the Parks and Rec Department?
Well, I don't know about the facilitated, but it's under contract from Parks and Rec.
But just yes or no?
It's under contract, listen to me carefully, with Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation, which is a division of the City of Nanaimo, control it. And they've given the DNBIA opportunity to use it from time to time.
To further my question, when you go to apply for a permit to use that plaza, you have to go to the Downtown Nanaimo Business Association.
Yeah, probably. If there, then is that from the procedure? Okay.
I'd just like to make it clear that we're all on the same page about that. Secondly, answer.
So Parks Recreation Culture Department manages the building through the city. Right now, the programming is through the DNBIA as per the Parks Recreation Culture bylaw.
Okay, so that's accurate. I was just clarifying.
Okay.
Secondly, do you believe that negotiations in good faith can go on when there is an ultimatum, a specific day laid out ahead. Is that a possibility to have negotiation in good faith?
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, that's why we're providing that opportunity. You know, it's not like we just started today. We started about 2 weeks ago, and we had some very good discussions, and I think they went exceptionally well. But we made it clear right from day one that the continued presence of structures in Diana Krall Plaza wasn't an option. And I was led to believe from the conversations that were held that that was something that they would understand and work with us on. And so we're at the stage where it's the 11th hour. We can't go on and on and on and on. At some point, we have to draw a line in the sand, and that's what's happened.
But is that one-sided ultimatum necessary to an open negotiation? Isn't that something that could be part of the negotiation?
Well, you know, the thing is, when it comes to bylaws, like any law, you know, you have to draw the line on, are you going to enforce them or not enforce them? These are legal laws passed by the City Council, and they've been enforced for many, many years. And when you have one that you know is being contravened and you choose not to follow up on it, where does it go then next? Is it you overlook speeding tickets, and then you overlook all the rest of the infractions? You know, you have laws or you don't have laws. You can't have occasionally laws, and you can't enforce them occasionally. And that's where we're at with this dilemma. I mean, I think in their heart of hearts, everyone that I spoke to from Occupy Nanaimo knows what the law is. The law is no structures on Diana Krall Plaza. And so that's, they're aware of it. Maybe they feel that they would like to approach it in a different way. I'm not questioning that. I'm just simply saying you can't have laws and enforce them for some and not for others.
That appears to be the situation as it has been for the past however many days that the structures have been up, if that's what you call them. So I'm confused by that response, but let's move on because everybody wants to leave.
Right.
So this is sort of a double-pronged question, but you can answer it however you please. First, how have these negotiations been going on besides the, I think, 3 meetings we've had that have been short and not really containing any dialogue? And what are the proceedings that the City Council is planning on taking part in over the next 3 days? It's really way too vague right now for me to feel comfortable at all. So I'd like some clarification on specifically the plan over the next 3 days on where these negotiations are going to take place, how they're going to take place, who will facilitate them, and how can I be part of that, because this is important to me.
Okay. That's a good question, and I would suggest maybe Matt or Matt's, the two of them, could. What are you shaking your head for? You got a nervous twitch or what? What were you shaking your head for?
Please finish that.
Okay, I was just going to say, if they want to get a hold of the city tomorrow and then see if we can set up some times, that's how I would suggest going about it.
Okay, I was shaking my head because they're not in charge of the.
Well, who is in charge?
There's no leaders. We are all leaders in this movement. So, as you know, taking leadership here, I would invite the City Council to come to our General Assembly tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the
But that's not a venue
square.
we would go to.
Sorry?
That's not a venue that we would normally hold a council meeting at.
We normally wouldn't come here, but we've come at your bequest to City Hall up several times, and you've, not specifically anybody here, but nobody has come down to our venue.
Oh, I've been down a couple of times myself, and I think Councillor Patchy has, Councillor Johnson.
As the City Council. Personally, individuals have, but as the City Council, okay, the question is, will the City Council come meet us in our venue, as is sort of...
I'm not sure if I understand how we would negotiate. If there's no one in your group that can negotiate with this, I don't know how that'll happen.
We'll all negotiate. We can do it together. We've been running this whole
Well, we'd be interested in hearing how you're going to do it, for sure.
Sorry?
We would be interested in hearing how you plan to do that.
Can I answer that right now, then?
Sure, you can.
We've been running, first it was a nightly meeting every night during the week, and then as attendance started to peter out, as it got colder, we moved it to three times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And in the past week or so, they've been moving inside to local businesses who are willing to hold our meeting gatherings for us so we don't freeze our butts off and we can get some coffee. And the model we've been using is a consensus model. So there's an agenda laid out. Certain 2 or 3 folks will take the facilitation role and will not take personal stances. They will use their facilitation guidelines, and everybody has a chance to speak. And we only move forward on a motion if we come to consensus. So that means everybody has to agree on what comes out. And that sounds like what everybody's interested in, is this is an equitable agreement that everybody feels good about and everybody wants. So
Okay, well, we'll be interested in hearing how you want to approach it. It's your decision to how you want to approach it, not the city's.
Yeah, and
let us know how you want to approach it.
Would the city?
We're not going to come to anything tonight. We're going to start negotiations tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Phone us tomorrow, then see what's going to happen. But I can tell you, we're not negotiating tonight. I've made that point several times. If it's
I'm not asking you to. I'm not asking you to negotiate tonight.
Okay.
I'm
and when we go down, I don't think we can only go as individuals. We're not going to be able to go down as a council and make decisions in a plaza.
Sorry, finish.
We are not going to be able to go down and operate as a complete council in Diana Krall Plaza. We cannot do that.
Okay, actually, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I believe we're meeting in Demeter's Coffee Vault. So is that a possibility? It's warm in there.
I don't know. Phone us tomorrow. We're not negotiating tonight. Okay?
I'm not asking to negotiate. I'm asking for you to clarify how you want to negotiate.
That's why we put a deadline of 72 hours on this thing, and I hope that you'll make an effort. I hope that you'll make an effort to do something meaningful the next 72 hours, because otherwise the future is pretty well dedicated. We know what we're going to have to do. So I think you need to put some serious thought into it and get somebody who has authority to negotiate with us on this thing and get it over with, because the time is yours, not ours now, okay?
Can we keep talking about this? Is that
well,
okay
let's wind this up fairly short, because it's been a long evening.
We'll make it quick, because I think that I'm the last speaker.
Is there anyone else? Are you the last speaker?
I believe so.
If you're not the last speaker...
Okay, well, anyway, there's been a bit of confusion here. You say we can set how this negotiation is going to happen, and I'm asking for us to just do that right now while we're here.
We're not going to do that.
You're saying
I've said to you, you're going to talk to the city tomorrow, okay? Talk to the city tomorrow. We are not negotiating this tonight.
I don't want.
Are you having problems with that?
I think you're having
You can talk to us tomorrow about the negotiations. You've got 72 hours, and then just let us know how you want to go about it.
But if the clock is ticking now...
Okay, you're finished. Next speaker.
Can somebody finish that one, please?
Oh, come on, Gord. You've been here already on the same subject. We don't need to hear any more from you. Just a quick one. Okay.
You keep mentioning 72 hours. 72
I don't know exactly the time. You tell me the time, Gordon.
You mentioned 72 hours a number of times for negotiations.
Yep.
Is there any reason that this might not be extended longer than the 72 hours? I'm not saying that it go on for a week or a month or 10 days.
Okay, well, Gord, you can work it out. It's the requirement is that they vacate the plaza by Thursday, December 1, 2011 at 9 a.m. Subtract the number of hours and let me know what that is. But I'm not going to play the game.
At which point, if they haven't, you will seek an injunction.
We will look at starting that procedure.
Okay, so you will look at starting to seek an injunction.
That's what it says.
Will negotiations still operate while you are looking at
I would think so. We'd have to get the legal people.
So then it is safe to say that it could extend longer than 72 hours.
Good.
Thank you. As a final question and aside here, I really want to thank Councillors Sherry, Hold'em, and Unger for the amount of work they have put on sitting on council. Councillor Sherry, you are a phenomenal gentleman and an icon in the city, as is Councillor Hold'em. Councillor Unger, I may not have agreed with you on all your decisions, but your past 2 terms have been tireless. Now, my question is to everybody in here, would you rise and offer these 3 fine gentlemen a hand for their service?
Sure. Part of our procedure was that's exactly what we were going to do as a council, but thank you, Gord, taking the step ahead for us. I just want to say that we are going to dearly miss our 3 councillors, Councillor Sherry, Councillor Hold'em, and Councillor Unger, and recognizing that Councillor Sherry is the senior councillor with over 30 years experience on the council, and Councillor Hold'em with over 20 years, and Councillor Unger has been at least 2 terms as well. So we're going to miss the vision that you had. We're going to really miss the friendship and fellowship that we had. And, on behalf of council, I want to say how much we enjoyed working with you. And I can tell you that what you've contributed to the city in the last 30 years, Lloyd, in your particular case, is just an amazing accomplishment. And I think the city is indebted to you for all that you've done. And we have for you a little envelope here for you. So this is a token of our respect. This is from council. It's got nothing else, just council people. We passed the hat around, and we didn't get the hat back. But anyway, but I thought if you have any words you want to say, it's.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve the right to have the last word.
Okay, good point. So we'll start with Councillor Unger.
Is the youngest there.
Councillor Unger is the younger man on this group here, but I also want to say to all of you, but for you, Councillor Unger, that your contribution also has been much appreciated. You've brought a business approach to a lot of the issues, and you and Councillor Patchy together worked tirelessly on getting safer Nanaimo. In fact, I think you were on it for the whole 6 years or more, and accomplished a great deal in that. And that's a very, very tough program to follow, and Safer Nanaimo contributed a huge amount, and I think a lot of it was because of the role that you played in it, and I want to say how much I personally appreciate what you did, and I know I speak for all the council in that too.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. When we think of years of service, and Councillor Holdham being the second highest, actually, that's not quite true. I've been here for 28 years, but only 6 years that they'd let me vote. All the years I covered council for newspapers. The past 6 years has really been something that has been very, very important to me. I ran for city council because I wanted to make a contribution, and I think I have, but I think the personal satisfaction that I've gained from it, I have gained more than the city has as a whole. And I just want to go over a few things. The mayor has already mentioned some, but the downtown first was a downtown partnership, and then we went and tried to develop it so that they could walk on their own 2 feet and run an independent business organization and not be run by city council. It was quite a challenge, and we had to go through quite a few things, but we finally did achieve that, and the downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Area is moving along quite nicely thanks to the people who are involved in it and who make up that organization, and that is the businesses downtown who have a personal stake. We've also mentioned Safer Nanaimo Working Group. It has been a pleasure to work on that one, and it started out as a Safer Downtown group, but we expanded it to all of Nanaimo. We worked with the RCMP, city bylaws, and city social planning department, the Vancouver Island Health Authority, and the Nanaimo First Nations to make our whole city safer, and I think we have accomplished a lot. A lot of attention has been focused recently on the supportive housing issue. I worked with 2 other councillors on that, first with Councillor Diane Brennan, who was on the first Safer Nanaimo Working Group with me, and Councillor Fred Patchy, and I'm glad to see that former Councillor Brennan will again be Councillor Brennan. She will be joining City Council at the next meeting. I am very confident that when the announcement is made, hopefully within the next week or so, as to the operators of those supportive housing units, I am very confident that everything will work out for the best, and that some of the scaremongering that was out there will be totally unfounded, and I think the citizens of Nanaimo will benefit greatly because we are looking after the people who do need help, who cannot look after themselves for various reasons. And the misconception that everybody is a drug user or a drunk is not true, and definitely will not be the ones that are going into there. I also take great pride with Councillor Hold'em in getting something that hasn't got a lot of attention, but we've approved hydro generation from our water supply. Years ago, when I was working for the newspapers and I went down to the dams that the city has, and I saw all that water flowing over the dam and coming from Manitoba, where every river is dammed up and they're creating hydro out of it, I thought this was a tremendous idea. I couldn't get anybody to pay attention until Bill joined me and we got that approved. I tried very early on to get attention placed on economic development for the city. If we don't create jobs, then our economy is not going to go anywhere. And when Mayor Rattan came on board, he saw the benefit of developing such a committee, and it went from committee stage to development corporation. I think one that'll work very, very well. And the proof is still in the pudding on that one, but I'm very confident on that. Another thing that I take great pride in was finding a location for the Nanaimo Military Museum, which was in a retail establishment for 25 years, and we had an empty former museum building that was suitable for their purpose, and it looked like that building might have to be torn down, but now we've been able to save it. And Nanaimo has a very, very rich history going back in the military around the world. So that is something I think that we need to always pay attention to. And the highlight, I think, for me was being able to work with city staff, Richard Harding and Andy Laidlaw, on getting the Larry McNabb Sports Zone established to recognize all the years of service that Larry put in to this city and in Parks and Recreation. For people who sometimes don't understand the work put in by a councillor, thinking that it might be just a meeting on television every 2 weeks. I just made a little list here of some of the things we've dealt with, and this is where your tax money is going. When people wonder about where their taxes go, we spent time and effort on developing a floral emblem for Nanaimo. These may all sound minor, but we provided blasting education for people who are building and in construction, who are dynamiting when they need to take care of the rocks. We had a wood stove change-out program, a toilet subsidy. We struggled on cat euthanasia problems, on the potholes, garden refuse collection, Swealana parking, Haven Society development cost charges, Telecom Leylon development cost charges, even about whether we're going to have chickens in the city. I could go on, but the biggest one I think we've had to deal with is downloads by senior levels of government. The federal government discovered they could just hand their problems down to the provinces and they could come and show us the great balanced budget. The province thought it worked so well they'd hand it down to the city, and we have nobody to hand it down to except to the taxpayers. And then the load comes right down to this level, and that's one of the things that has concerned me the most. Is the bottom line is the final bill is always paid by you. Again, thank you to the citizens of Nanaimo who elected me twice. As I said, I gained the most out of it, and I take great pride in what has been accomplished, and I'm sure there's things I've missed, but thank you very much.
Well said, Merv. And now we'll turn it over to Councillor Bill Holdham. Councillor Bill Holdham has got 23 years service with the city. And, here's a man that really had a passion for the social issues that the city had to deal with. Was a man who was unhesitatingly prepared to give his opinion, regardless of whether we wanted it or not. But he was always there for us. And, he worked a lot of miracles behind the scenes. He was a collaborative guy. He came along with a vision of how things could be done. When we came to an impasse time after time on issues, he came along with a recommendation or a suggestion that almost always worked. A very clear-thinking guy with a good vision of what Nanaimo needs to be, and he's contributed a huge amount. 23 years service to the community, and Bill, it's all yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. For once, I don't think I will talk about issues. I'll just say this. When I'm just recently wandering around Neck Point Park, and not so long ago attending a performance at the Port Theatre, and fairly recently cycling down the ENN Trail, I just thought those are at least three of the things that have happened since I've been on council and that I've been pleased to support. So sometimes it's quality of life rather than just politics. So first of all, I want to thank the citizens of Nanaimo for giving me the opportunity and the honor of serving as a councillor for 23 years and as a school trustee for 8 years before that. When I was first elected, I was a young instructor at what was then Malaspina College. I was a transplant from North Burnaby, and my daughters were infants. Now I'm a grandparent. So that's how time passes. All I promised ever in trying to get elected was to do my best to serve the community well, and that's what I've tried to do. Second, I want to say something about my colleagues on all of the councils and the staff. How blessed I've been to have worked with such good people, all of whom have put the well-being of Nanaimo before all else, and who have also done their best to serve the public good. This outgoing council has been no exception. Like any group of people with diverse backgrounds and interests, we have had some strong differences of opinion, met some formidable challenges, and engaged in some hard-fought debates. But an underlying respect for our roles and responsibilities, for our community, and for each other carried us through from one issue to the next. I think the public saw that and expressed their confidence in what we have been doing by re-electing all the incumbents. So let me begin with Lloyd Cherry, the one remaining councillor who has been here longer than me. Lloyd has always been the voice of history, the voice of caution against moving ahead too quickly, the one who turned Dr. No, N-O, into Dr. No, K-N-O-W, and who has consistently demanded that we follow due process. I didn't always agree with Lloyd, but I always listened carefully to him and often modified my initial position to try to accommodate his wise words. Thank you, Lloyd. The other long-serving councillor lost to us a year ago was Larry McNabb. Larry didn't have much patience for long-windedness. He had an uncanny ability to cut to the chase, identify the heart of a matter, and then want to vote. He would be wiping his face in dismay right now listening to these long speeches if he were here. As a councillor and as chair of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission, Larry got a great deal done for this city. He also became, strangely, a great friend to me, in spite of the differences in background and political persuasion, and I miss him still. Next, Merv Unger, also departing with Lloyd and me. Merv, too, has become a close friend, in spite of political differences. Merv has never forgotten his reporter instincts and never fails to amaze me with how much new information he has gathered before anyone else. And I can't help but remember one time when he was still a reporter and I was on council, and he asked me some obnoxious question, and I turned to him and I just said, and the word starts with F, off, Merv. And he printed it in the next paper, and I subsequently apologized apologized very profusely, and we've been good friends ever since. So Merv is one of those guys who, when he sees a job to be done, just rolls up his sleeves and gets to work. And thanks, Merv, especially for the wide-ranging and exciting discussions we've had after the meetings. Now, Bill Bestwick. Congratulations, Bill, for topping the polls 3 times in a row. I never quite made it to that tops position, and it's a great accomplishment. And in spite of the fact that Bill and I often cancel each other out in our votes, our discussions outside of the council chambers have been deep and meaningful. Bill has been our questioner, finding questions where no one else does, and always trying to root out the devil in the details. I know you want to do the best job you can for Nanaimo, Bill, and I respect your work. Thank you. And then there's Jim Kipp, an ally from a previous council in the 90s, whose wealth of ideas and brilliance can cut like a whip or inspire like the stars. He's another one I have really listened to, waiting for the gems that almost always come. For Jim, the city itself is his core value. There, I got it in. Thank you, Jim. And Diana Johnstone. No one on council takes the job more seriously nor ponders the issue more sensitively than Diana. She really does recognize the balance of competing values that we often face. And I honor her pride of place, a commitment to Nanaimo, and she has I've truly enjoyed working with you, Diana, and I'm very glad Nanaimo has re-elected you. I know you are one who finally votes with your conscience. Thank you. And Fred Padgey, perhaps the most gentlemanly and gracious council member I've ever known. He has grown so completely into his role as a councillor that it fits him like a comfortable suit. Fred came to council as one of its fiercest critics and has become one of its most fearless defenders. Yet he maintains his commitment to basic principles. Thank you, Fred. And finally, our newbie, Ted Greaves. Talk about being plunged into the maelstrom. Ted has undergone one of the steepest learning curves imaginable. After first getting elected last April, he was almost immediately faced with the longest and most contentious public hearing on record. But Ted has a great sense of humor, the endurance of a fit firefighter, and a heart of gold. Nanaimo will be rewarded for their confidence in this man. Thank you, Ted. And of course, I must say something about our newly re-elected mayor, John Matan. John has put his heart and soul, his mind, and his wit into this job. He works tirelessly for the city he loves and represents council's positions fairly and clearly. It has been a privilege and a pleasure serving with you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. So one word of advice. Keep an open mind. Good ideas come from anywhere, sometimes the most unlikely sources, even from staff. And the other is to stay, once you've received all the good ideas, stay true to yourself. So this is just one of the great councils I've served with, and I could mention all kinds of previous councils. It's been an incredible experience. I'm delighted with all we were able to accomplish, but for me, it's time to move on. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Bill. Well, Mr. Sherry, you're on.
I started off on my feet. I'm going to end on my feet. Because when I was first elected council, at a council meeting, you put your hand up, the mayor recognized from above that it was your turn. You stood and you addressed the council, the mayor, and the audience. And everyone in that room knew who had the floor, because you do. at least I believe that the two upper levels of government still hold true. When they have to speak, they arise and do the same thing, not only to the Assembly, but also when you got the cameras on you and everything like that. Okay, so I'm taking that opportunity as, I don't say my last time, for this time, to address not only council and the community itself. First one I really want to thank is my wife and family. Because without those support, where the hell are you? They bought in. When I was first elected, I thought, okay, we had 2 years terms. I thought, okay, well, I'll do 6 years and get the hell out and away we go, type of thing. But you know, it's like everything else. You get here, you see the agenda, and something else twigs you, and you've got to bite into it, and you can't let it go. So, time out. Okay? I take a different perspective, and like everybody says, Dr. No, K-N-O-W or N-O, you know, whichever way you want to do it. But I can tell you of all the different councils that I have had the opportunity and the communities give me the opportunity to work with, I can honestly say that this current council that's going out is one of the best. Now, you had to earn that right, because when I look around this table and I look around previous tables, we all got this agenda. I could tell how Bill and Merv were going to be voting. When Kip was with us before, I had a good idea where he was. With Billy, the same thing. But with this new bunch, no. You never knew, and that's the amazing part that I got to congratulate you people on, is your independence. And to me, I honestly appreciate that, because as those that have been around the table the couple of days that I've been around, council, we deal with council business, and when we get out, then it's a different deal. Just the way I was built, that's all. Wasn't always out on the social or whatever. And another thing that this council has, whenever there's been a function within the community, we've had very good representation, representing council at those functions. And they've truly got their heart in the right place in serving the community. Now, the thing is that what have I done? I've done nothing. Because without the support of 5 members of council on any one issue, I'm only one vote. And that's how we gone, and that's how we worked. This last term, on a personal note, has been one, gut-wrenching time. And I really got to tell you that. When one looks at the various issues that council has to deal with, and make a decision on how does it reflect on our community. And I can tell you for sure, most of the council realize that I've had to change. I didn't have to, but for the betterment of the community, I did make a change on decisions. And I've told them when I got up the next morning, I had to put my head in the toilet bowl to regurgitate. And it's been some of the toughest decisions that I have had to make, other than when I decided that it was my time to take time out. So the challenge to the new council and the council that are sitting around this table that's carrying our community forward. As an individual that marked the ballot on election day, I'm putting my trust in you. And don't let me down.
So we have one for Bill and one for Merv here. This is, you can't open them now, but it's just the increase in pay. Okay.
The reason Councillor Sherry has been here for 30 years is because he did not know how to say no.
Anyway, you know, and I think we'd be remiss too if we didn't briefly touch on Larry McNabb and what he did too. Not only are we losing three really capable people, but the unexpected loss of Larry McNabb was a huge hit to all of us. And you know, I know probably everyone in this room, or a lot of the people that had a chance to meet him, and gruff, tough guy, and yet, you know, he had a heart of gold, and he had a vision of what he wanted to see in Nanaimo. And you know, there's a lot of times when people were interested in some of his motivation, and some were saying, well, he did so much for arts and culture, and they said, Larry McNabb, arts and culture? But he really did. You know, he was a very gifted guy, and he had a vision of what he wanted to see for Nanaimo, and he did a lot as well. So I just want to say that Larry was missed, and he did also, with the other three, accomplish a huge amount as well. So, move to adjourn. Stand adjourned.